You ever try reading Nabokov's Lolita? Not in New York, not in London, not even in a quiet cafe in some bohemian suburb, but in Tehran, under a regime that thinks books are more dangerous than bombs? Now imagine doing that not alone, but with 7 other women, all of you dodging the eyes of a moral police force that believes a bare strand of hair can cause social collapse. That's not just reading, that's revolution with a hardback. This story begins in the aftermath of the Iranian Revolution, when the Shah was overthrown and the Islamic Republic settled in like a strict uncle who moved into the house and started rewriting the rules. Azar Nafisi, our narrator, is an academic, a teacher of English literature, and above all, a lover of books. But in revolutionary Iran, loving books, especially Western ones, is a rebellious act. The government doesn't take kindly to people enjoying Nabokov, Austen, Fitzgerald, or Henry James. No, they want books that chant the party line, or better yet, no books at all. That way, there's nothing to contradict the slogans on the street. So what does Nafisi do? She gathers 7 of her most committed female students and starts a secret book club. No banners, no hashtags, just books, tea, and defiance. They meet every Thursday morning in Azar's home. It's a quiet rebellion. Each woman removes her veil as she steps in. Outside, they are invisible, shapeless figures wrapped in black. Inside, they are themselves again, lively, opinionated, curious. Each page they turn is a step away from the world outside and into something freer. And what do they read first? Lolita. Yes, that Lolita. The one where a middle-aged man manipulates and abuses a young girl. Not exactly bedtime reading, especially not in Tehran. But Azar isn't reading it for shock value. She's reading it because she sees something bigger in it. In Lolita, the central character, Dolores Hayes, has no voice. Everything is filtered through the man who controls her. In a way, Dolores becomes a symbol for the people of Iran, trapped, spoken for, reshaped by those in power. Just like how Humbert Humbert rewrote Lolita's story to suit his narrative, the Iranian regime was rewriting people's lives, desires, and identities. One of the most enlightening moments was when Nafisi explored a single word, poshlust, a term from Nabokov referring to empty fake beauty or false ideals. It resonated with them so deeply because their entire society felt poshlust, full of empty righteousness and moral facades. But Lolita is just the beginning. Over the course of the story, Azar and her students read works by Jane Austen, Henry James, F. Scott Fitzgerald, and more. Each book serves as a mirror to their lives. The Great Gatsby leads to a discussion on dreams and the illusion of freedom. Daisy Miller helps them explore gender and morality. Jane Austen gets more applause than any mullah ever will in that living room. These women don't just read books, they inhabit them. They use fiction to understand their reality, to reflect on their identities, to question the regime and even themselves. They discuss romance, power, betrayal, and choice. And with every conversation, they chip away at the walls built around them. But outside that small bubble of tea and literature, the country is changing, and not for the better. After the revolution, civil liberties don't just shrink, they get guillotined. Women are forced to wear the veil. Universities are purged of professors who don't toe the line. Literature is censored, dissidents vanish, friends and family leave. The Iran Azar knew becomes unrecognizable. But she doesn't leave immediately. For years, she tries to work within the system. She teaches literature in classrooms filled with suspicion. She faces down authorities who want her to teach ideology instead of ideas. She watches students disappear or grow silent. And slowly, painfully, she realizes that she can no longer function in this suffocating atmosphere. Eventually, in 1997, Azar Nafisi makes the decision to leave Iran. But before that, before the departure, before the heartbreak, she captures these years, these moments of stolen freedom, in the form of this memoir. The book is Reading Lolita in Tehran, a memoir in books by Azar Nafisi. Published in 2003, this book is not just a memoir, it's a love letter to literature. It's a protest song in the key of Austen, and it's a subtle, intellectual rebellion wrapped in a velvet cover. Reading this book felt like sitting in Azar Nafisi's living room. You're there with her and the students, laughing, debating, trying to understand why The Great Gatsby hits harder when you know freedom isn't promised. What struck me most was the parallel storytelling, how Nafisi uses other books to explain her own life. It's brilliant. One word, like Nabokov's Poshlust, can reverberate across cultures, continents, and decades. This isn't just a memoir about Iran, it's a memoir about books, about how they outlived dictators and survived censorship, about how reading is, in many ways, an act of resistance. But the book isn't perfect, and it's important to say that. The structure can be disorienting. Nafisi jumps back and forth in time with such abandon you'd think she was trying to shake you off. Chronology is more a suggestion than a rule. Events blur together. Characters fade in and out like background noise. You get the sense that the story is being told to herself more than to us. And in a way, that's what memoirs are. Also, like most dissident memoirs, America is the quiet hero in the background. It's the symbol of freedom, progress, rationality. Meanwhile, China and Russia appear only to remind us what not to become. Even the Gulf War gets barely a mention, as if the global context didn't matter. But Nafisi isn't writing history, she's writing memory. And memories are deeply subjective. Another point worth noting, Nafisi briefly mentions that under the Shah, the secular regime, religious people were also oppressed. Veils were banned, women who insisted on wearing them were jailed. It's a powerful irony. Both extremes, the theocratic and the secular, took away choice. One forced the veil on, the other forced it off. Somewhere in between is the space where people just want to choose for themselves. This idea of choice, the right to live your life, dress how you want, read what you want, is the soul of this book. It's not really about Lolita or Gatsby or Daisy Miller. It's about agency, about finding freedom in small places, in pages, in conversations, in quiet Thursday mornings. Azar Nafisi paints a tragic portrait of a country that lost itself, a revolution that spiraled out of control. She shows how intellectuals fled, how even faithful Muslims lost the meaning of hijab when it became law instead of love. She shows how once a revolution becomes a tool for power, it eats its own children. But she also shows how, even in the darkest times, people resist. With literature. Here are a few themes that stood out. First, the power of literature books don't just entertain. They help us make sense of our reality. In a society that punishes independent thought, reading becomes a form of protest. Second, freedom versus control. From forced veils to banned books, both the secular and religious governments tried to control how people lived. Nafisi's memoir shows how such control robs individuals of their humanity. So, gender and oppression. Well, the memoir really centers on women. But it doesn't just paint them as victims. Nafisi and her students, they're thinkers, they're critics, and they're dreamers. Their discussions honestly reveal the real strength of women, especially when they're up against institutional erasure. Every revolution starts with hope. But, when different interest groups hijack that hope, well, it leads to chaos. Nafisi's Iran is a cautionary tale about revolutions without breaks. Azar Nafisi was born in Iran in 1955. She earned her doctorate in English and American literature at the University of Oklahoma and returned to Iran, where she taught at several universities. After the revolution, her refusal to conform to the ideological pressures of the Islamic Republic eventually forced her to resign. She left Iran in 1997 and now lives in the United States, where she continues to write and speak about the importance of literature, freedom, and education, especially for women. Her other books include Things I've Been Silent About and The Republic of Imagination, both of which expand on the themes of literature and personal freedom. Reading Lolita in Tehran isn't an easy book, but it's an important one. It asks uncomfortable questions and honestly, offers no neat answers. It's fragmented, like memory, biased, like memoir, but moving, intelligent, and quietly powerful. If you're a fan of memoirs, especially those that blend politics, culture, and literature, this one's for you. But if you're new to memoirs, maybe start somewhere else. Come back to this one when you're ready to read between the lines. And when you do, bring tea and maybe a copy of The Great Gatsby. Hey, thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you're interested in diving deeper into this book, I've left some links down in the description. You can use it to grab yourself a copy and keep the adventure going. And if you're in the mood for more great reads, don't go just yet. Click on one of the videos popping up right now that I think you'll love. And don't forget to give this review a like, leave a comment, or even subscribe if you'd like to see more. Every bit of support helps us grow this little community of book lovers. See you in the next one.